Today we are going to find the volume of cylinders, and so it's the same as finding the volume of a prism. Difference is that a cylinder always has the same type of base. It always has a circle. It's just different sizes. And so to find the volume of anything, it's just the stuff inside. And so all we have to do is to find the area of the base and multiply by the distance between the two bases. And that's our formula. So let's go ahead and write this down. Our volume equals the area of the base. So I'm going to write down area of, and then since the base is always a circle with a cylinder, we'll say the area of a circle, and so we're going to multiply that by the height of the circle, or the height of the cylinder. So multiply that by the height. And so more specifically, we could also write this as pi r squared, because the area of a circle is pi r squared, so we'll write pi r squared times by h, the height. And that's another way to write our volume formula. So whenever we've got one of these circles, again, we're looking to see whether we're given the radius or the diameter. In this case, we're given the radius. And so our volume formula is going to be radius, which is 5. And actually, let's go ahead and write out my formula, and then I'll substitute the numbers in there. So I'm going to rewrite this formula a little bit differently. I'm going to write it as radius times by the height, and then I'm going to multiply by pi. The reason I wrote that a different way, and I can do that, is because of the commutative property. And I did that because typically it's easier to multiply by pi last, because it's a large number, 3.14. And so sometimes it's easier to multiply the numbers that we have first. It'll make the one tough multiplication problem at the end rather than a bunch of tough multiplication problems throughout the problem. So let's go ahead and substitute our numbers in here. In place of the radius, we're going to write 5, because that's what the radius is. And then we write 5 again, because we have to multiply the radius by itself twice here. So 5 times 5 times by the height, which is 3. And then we'll multiply by pi. So let's go ahead and do this work here. 5 times 5 is 25 times by 3 times by pi. 25 times 3 is 75 pi. And this is actually the exact answer. Sometimes we leave terms in the exact answer. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and multiply it out. So 75 pi is the exact answer. Now we can do the 3.14 times by 75. Now notice when I'm multiplying, I don't line up decimals. I just multiply like they're regular old numbers. And so I do this and I get 20, carry a 2, that makes 5, and 2 makes 7. 5 and 3 make 15. Add a 0, and then do the next iteration. So 7 and 4 make 28, carry a 2. There's already a 2 there, so I'll just leave it. And then that makes 9. 7 and 1 plus 2 makes 9. 7 and 3 make 21. And so I get to add this stuff together. So I'm running out of room there, so I'm just going to write the numbers up here. So 0, and then carry 7 and 8 make 15. Carry a 1, and that makes 10 plus 5 makes 15. Carry another 1. And then I have 1, 1, and 1 make 3, and then the 2. And so I move the decimal over the number of spaces that are after the decimal, just 2 spaces here. So 235 and 5/10 centimeters cubed. Now notice the volume is cubed because we're doing an area times by height. So area is squared times by height, which is just units, and then that makes units cubed. So let's take a look at our next problem here. So we have a 6 is our radius, 2 is the height. So we're using the same formula. Volume equals radius times height times pi. See, I like to do the pi at the end because that's the tough problem. See, this other stuff I can do in my head. 6 times 2 times by pi. And so I do 6 times 6 is 36 times 2 makes 72. See, we could do that in our head. Now it's time for doing one difficult problem. So we've got 3.14 times by 72. So now we double each of the numbers, because 2 times the numbers. So it makes 8, 2, and 6. Carry a 0, and then multiply. 28, carry a 2, makes 7 plus 1 makes 9, or 7 plus 2 makes 9, and then another 21. And so we go ahead and add this stuff together. We get 8. This makes 10. Carry a 1, that makes 16. And carry another one, that makes 22, or 2. and then another 2. So we go ahead and move that decimal over 2 spaces because there's 2 numbers after the decimal point. So there's our answer, 226 and 8 tenths, or 8 hundredths, and this is yards this time, yards to the 3rd power. All right, the next problem, same sort of thing. Let's do the volume formula just as we did before. Radius times height times pi. So you multiply the radius by itself, so 3 times 3 times by 10 times by pi. Now this time, when I multiply it, 3 times 3 makes 9, times 10 makes 90. So I have to do 90 times by pi. So let's go ahead and set it up, 3.14 times by 90. Well, since I'm all the way, 0 times a number doesn't change anything, I'm going to skip that, but I'm going to move over to the 9. So I got to add a 0 and then start multiplying. So that makes 36, carry a 3, makes 12, carry a 1. 27 plus 1 is 28. And then move the decimal over 2 spaces. So there's our answer. So we have 282 and 6 tenths. And the units are feet to the 3rd power. Well, our next problem here deals with, well, words without having a picture. So let's go ahead and sketch a quick picture. So when I draw a cylinder, or sketch a cylinder, I'm going to sketch an oval, make an oval there. And once I've got my oval in here, then I'm going to draw some lines going down, straight down. And they're going to just touch the end of the oval here. I do the same thing over here, draw them straight down. And then I make the same curve I have here. So I make that same curve. And if I want, I could go ahead and draw that dashed hidden arc on the other side. So pretty much that's what it looks like. And it says that the diameter, so the diameter is a line that goes through the center of the circle. There's my center right there. And the diameter is 4 centimeters, it says. And this cylinder is 40 centimeters tall. So there's a picture. Now, on the other problems, they gave us the radius. Here they're giving us the diameter. Well, our volume formula uses the radius. It's radius times by height times by pi. So I need the radius. Well, the diameter equals 4. Well, if I divide this by 2, I have the radius. So if you take half of the diameter, you get the radius, and that's what the radius is. So let's go ahead and substitute that number in there. 2 times 2 times by 40 times by pi. So we go ahead and do that work. That makes 4 times by 4 makes 16. Carry up a 0. That makes 160 pi. That's the exact answer, but now we actually have to multiply it out. So 3.14 times 160. So I'm going to add a 0 and then start doing the multiplying. That makes 24. That makes 6 and 2 make 8. Makes 18. Carry another 2 zeros. So we carried 1 0 for this one. So now I got to carry 2 zeros because I'm over at the 1 here. And now I start multiplying again. So I get 4, 1, and 3. So I add that stuff up. I get 0, 4, 12, carry a 1, 10, carry another 1, 5. And then I move the decimal over 2 spaces. So there's my number, 502 and 4 tenths. And this is centimeters to the 3rd power. So there's our answer. Well, the last problem is a little bit different because they give us what the volume is. It says the volume of a 2-foot tall cylinder, 2 feet tall cylinder, is 56 and 52 hundredths cubic feet. So let's go ahead and draw what we've got. We've got this cylinder. We know the cylinder is 2 feet tall. So there's the height. But this time they're giving us what the volume is. They say the volume equals 56.52. What we don't know is the radius, and that's what they're asking for here. Find the radius. And so typically our formula goes this way. It goes volume equals R times H times pi. Well, we don't know what radius is, so let's go ahead and substitute what we do know. In place of V this time, we get to put 56.52. And then we don't know what the radius is, so let's go ahead and just write radius squared, or even radius times by radius. We can leave it like that. Times by H, which is 2, times by pi, which is 3.14, we'll say. Well, now we have to solve for the radius. We need to isolate these two radii here. And so we're going to go ahead and multiply the 2 and the 3.14. So off to the side here, I'm going to do 2 times 3.14. So I go ahead and do that work. That makes 8, 2, 6. Decimal point 2 spaces over. 6.28. So now my formula looks like this. 56.52 equals the radius times by 6.28. So now I'm going to go ahead and do some division. I need to isolate these two r's. So I'm going to divide by 6.28 on both sides. So now we have a tough division problem. 6.28 divided by 56.52. Well, whenever we divide by decimals, we always move those decimal points over. So let's go ahead and do that. It goes over 2 spaces, so this goes over 2 spaces. So the decimal point comes straight up. Now I think of 6. Cover up these two numbers. 6 into 56. How many times there? Well, let's see here. 6 goes into 56. Well, actually, we're trying to figure out 6 into 628 into this 5,652. So I'm using this method by covering up these two terms and these two terms. It helps me kind of come up with a possible answer. And so it looks like 6 goes into 56 9 times. Let's try a 9. And so 9 times these numbers. Let's go ahead and do the work there. Makes 72. Carry a 7. 18 and 7 make 25. This makes 54 plus 2 makes 56. So it worked out perfectly. So we have a remainder of 0. So the radius times by the radius equals 9. So what two numbers that are exactly the same equal 9? Well, it would have to be 3 times 3. Those numbers equal 9. So that means the radius is 3. So 3 feet would be our radius. Well, those are the types of problems that you'll see on tonight's homework. Good luck.